So firstly, I wanted to say a big thank you to all of you for coming today to SquaredUp Live. Those of you who don't know me, my name is Bruce. I'm a Director of Products here at SquaredUp. I'm responsible for Dashboard Server's product lineup. I'm also responsible for the cloud products plugins side of things. So I have one foot in each camp, which is kind of interesting when it comes to what I want to talk to you about today, which is essentially Dashboard Server versus cloud. Now, what's kind of interesting for me about this, obviously, is having one foot in each camp. So I kind of genuinely understand the pros and the cons of each of these products. And there are genuinely strengths and weaknesses to both of these products. So this is where we're going to start with a quick show of hands, or rather a quick reaction. So this is where I need you to push those buttons on your keyboard, the numbers 1 to 7 on your keyboard, for any form of reaction. I think 4 is a thumbs up, for example. Can I get a thumbs up from you guys if you are aware of SCOM or use SCOM in your day-to-day work? Let's start with that one. So that is about half of the room, probably almost the whole room over time. Yeah, that's almost the whole room. That's fair enough. That's exactly what I was expecting the case to be. And of you guys who've put your virtual hands up in the air, how many of you are Dashboard Server customers? Let's get another reaction for that. I need to figure out how much to go into details and how much not to. That's probably about, I'm going to guess at about 80% of the room. All right, that's really great piece of background to know what to do and what not to do. So which means you'll be aware of this, essentially, which is a screen grab from our Dashboard Server 5.0 release webinar. So we're going back in time quite some years to February of 2021 for this. And in this webinar, we set the stage for a single pane of glass product, bringing together, you can see in the orange highlights rather, sorry, SCOM, Azure, AWS, and single pane of glass. The important 4 things called out here. So we set out effectively, set the stall for our mission to bring together a single pane of glass product. So when we put this slide out, we were debating at the time, what should this kind of product look like? Should this be a cloud product? Should this be an on-prem product? We could simply add integrations to Dashboard Server as was then, and that could be our true single pane of glass. Equally, we could build something entirely new. What do we think is needed? Now, one of the pieces of data that helped shape the answer to this question was we also launched at this webinar, you'll see at the bottom of this slide, a single pane of glass survey, where we asked you essentially, why a single pane of glass? What is it to you guys that is important about a single pane of glass product? We got some really interesting insights and responses, but we also set out, or got the results from, I should say, the Big SCOM survey. This is the very first one that we did, going back to 2020. So I think we set this out in December of 2020, collecting the results in March of 2021. And that gave us, among other things, a list of all the tools that you guys use, alongside SCOM, of course. And the results from the 21st of March 2021 look exactly like this. I was about to say a bit like this, but these are the results. So what's important for the purposes of this session today is not the tools that are listed here, because ultimately, you know, this is however many years out of date. We're about to launch the Big SCOM Survey 2024. So we're about to share the results, rather, sorry, of that session. What's important here is really the spread between tools that are focused around on-prem use cases and tools that are focused around cloud use cases. Yes, I know it's a bit nuanced, and you can use, say, Azure Monitor to look at on-prem workloads, and you can use SolarWinds to monitor networking within the cloud, but by and large, they have a primary focus. There are some of these tools that are a bit more hybrid. And the thing you essentially see at a really high level is the split is fairly even, fairly 50-50. Now, this is interesting. So over the years, our expectation was we would see more usage of cloud monitoring tools, so the likes of AWS CloudWatch and Azure Monitor grow, and we would expect to see the use of on-prem tools decline. Now, the industry at this point was talking a lot about cloud only, which I don't think is ever going to be the reality, to be honest, and speaking to our customers. But I am predicting, have been predicting for years, a hybrid kind of scenario. So this sets the fact in our minds that we should build a net new product rather than simply add integrations to our Dashboard Server products. Again, we've got the Big SCOM Survey 2024 coming up, so it'll be interesting to tune into that in 2 weeks' time, I think it is, to understand what things look like this year, by contrast. So this sets the stage nicely. So we've got these two tools, Dashboard Server on-prem and cloud, which is obviously not on-prem, it's in the cloud. We're going to compare these two products side by side for a few specific criteria. The most important one for you guys, I suspect, is going to be SCOM. So when I say SCOM, I'm talking about things like managing alerts, managing maintenance modes, SCOM tasks, resetting monitors, and of course the bread and butter of just dashboarding essentially on top of SCOM. We've also got the whole notion of how quick is it to use, speed and latency. Now, depending on where your tools are sort of located that you're going to be connecting to, very much depends on the answer to this question in some regard, but we're going to take a look at that. And then we're going to take a look at essentially the possibility of a true single pane of glass, which is what SPAG stands for. I just couldn't fit all single pane of glass on the slide, which is a sort of a way of saying the list of integrations the product enables without having to build it all yourself. And finally, we've got how useful is the product for root cause analysis. So you heard in the keynote earlier on how when stuff goes wrong, it's really important to have a tool that's got your back. It can help you get to the why of something has gone wrong quickly. And that is facilitated by good root cause analysis. Now, there are pros and cons in all of these areas for all these products. This is effectively what we're going to be looking at right now. So with that in mind, I need to keep my phone here because this has got the list on so I don't forget an area to compare. But let's now go and compare these two tools. And again, this isn't going to be one of those sort of pre-canned pieces where the answer is cloud is amazing and the on-prem thing, the old thing is no good. That is simply not the case. We're going to honestly look at them through the lens of you guys as SCOM users and administrators. So we're going to start off in Dashboard Server. So you guys are all fairly familiar with this, but as you'll know, out of the box, you get a large number of dashboards and perspectives for all of the common use cases, the things we see SCOM commonly used for. Now, this is possible because we know the list of management packs that are most commonly used by you guys because they're the ones that Microsoft provide for free. They're effectively included in the purchase price of SCOM. So if I drill into one of those dashboards, we have an awesome dashboard just out of the box for Windows Server 2016. Now, if I wanted to take a look at that alert management use case, for example, I've got my open alerts here right in front of me for the Server 2016 dashboards. If I now drill into the alerts, let's look at all of them, let's look at all 90 of them. Here they are. This is the full list. And of course, I can expand any alerts here that I see. I can see any relevant information which is useful for understanding a single pane of glass and doing root cause analysis here. So in this case, I can see the status of the monitored object along with its health over time. I have got a drill down as well, so I can drill into this alert. I've also got the ability from this high level to execute a SCOM task. Let's see what we've got for this one. Let's run something that's a non-destructive task rather than resetting things. Let's get the monitor state. Obviously, I can see it from below, but you get the idea. This is running a SCOM task and will return the results. You guys are all very familiar with this, nothing new here. I didn't provide a parameter I needed to provide, but you get the idea for how this thing works. If I drill down into the alert, I can move this alert between states. And so I can move this alert from state new to raise incident, for example, and hit update. And that happens in real time. We also see here the hosting stack, any affected applications, the description of the alert, which you can see in SCOM itself, of course, and anything relevant we can find from anywhere else, like change history, company knowledge, product knowledge, etc. You get the idea. All of this is made possible because of both the SCOM object model and class structure and all of the information that SCOM makes available to us. So that's effectively the basics. There are a few other things that are kind of worth understanding. I said we talk about alerts and tasks, which we've done. The other thing I want to talk about is maintenance mode, which is obviously a really SCOM specific thing. So I've now drilled into a list of servers. There are 35 from memory here. Some are online, are healthy, some are not. There's one box here from the looks of things that's in maintenance mode, one is switched off. But what's important to understand here is the state of maintenance here. So if I click my maintenance mode button in the top right corner, the first thing I see is the objects that are in maintenance mode right now. which is great. I can see that this object is in maintenance mode. It's going to be in maintenance mode for quite some time, a good 2 years, essentially. We can also see the schedules. So it's important to note here there are 27 schedules that can affect these 35 objects. Now, this is important because I don't know whether 27 schedules is the total list of schedules in my SCOM management group. But really, I don't care about that. What's important to me is to see the relevant schedules. So if I now drill into these 4 servers, the 4 that are in warning state, and click on the same maintenance mode button, I see none of them are in maintenance mode right now, and I can see only the 3 schedules that apply to these objects, which is important. We start with the context, so it's so much easier to get started with. I can obviously create new schedules. I can put something into maintenance mode as of now. And again, that context has flowed through. So the 4 objects in question are selected for me, so I haven't got to do it manually. I could take some of these out of the list. I can add some things in. All the options as far as maintenance mode, schedule maintenance mode is concerned are as you would expect to see from the SCOM console. And I can create a new schedule here. And that's all very cool. The other thing I said I'd show you is essentially net new dashboarding in Dashboard Server, just for a point of comparison. So here we are in a new dashboard. I'm going to be quite quick about this because this is very, very bread and butter for Dashboard Server, but it's important when it comes to this compare and contrast between Dashboard Server and Cloud. So let's say we want to put the state of monitors on a dashboard. Let's have the status block, for example. We're in monitors here right now. And let's search for a particular class. Let's search for the SquaredUp class, one of the SquaredUp classes. Let's have the state of the SquaredUp Cloud objects on this dashboard. And there they are at high level. Click, click, click. That was very easy. I've picked a class I'm kind of familiar with, but really this could be any old class. Equally, this could be a group. I could fiddle with the view. I probably should have done that, to be honest, given there's quite a few objects in here, but it doesn't matter. It's a demo. Let's do one more and then we'll jump across to Cloud quickly. So let's have a look at alerts to show you how easy it is to see the donut of alerts for a specific group. Let's have the SQL, MS SQL on Windows. One of the database groups, database engine group, for example. Don't know if we have any alerts here. Looks like we do. We have 2. There we go. And that's easy to do. Click, 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 done. Anything you can see, you can click on and drill down into. So I've covered dashboarding, alerts, maintenance mode, and tasks. Good, I've covered the 4. Now, let's hop across to SquaredUp Cloud and see how Cloud fares by contrast. So the first thing we're going to do is actually add in our SCOM data source into a blank, what is called workspace over here. They're selectable from a drop-down. And for a demo, I've just stuck in a blank one. So I'm going to go add data source. I'm going to search for SCOM. You'll see there's a dedicated data source for SCOM managed instance, which is available in our free tier, but there's also a SCOM data source for good old on-prem SCOM. I'm going to cheat and add essentially the data source I already have set up. I'm going to add my sample dashboards as well, so I haven't got to build those dashboards. So this is very much akin, these sample dashboards, to these dashboards we saw at the top of this list that you're familiar with from Dashboard Server, these guys here. And an example of them is the first dashboard that is loaded, which shows me the state of actionable alerts. All right, let's have a look at SCOM tasks. There's a problem. There are no SCOM task capabilities or functionality in SquaredUp Cloud. So that's a cross here for Cloud. The same is true of maintenance mode. I can see when something is in maintenance mode, but I can't take any actions based on maintenance mode in the case of SquaredUp Cloud. I can see a whole bunch of stuff. So I can see the state of my servers or my SCOM management group or SQL, and some of those use cases you get out of the box essentially with Dashboard Server. The other thing to note, one of the criteria was how fast this thing is. Bear in mind, Dashboard Server sits alongside your SCOM management group. It's within your company's firewall, so it's going to be inherently more performant for the SCOM use case. How we fetch this data, the lights in my room are going off. That's the problem with being in the office rather than at home. Let's wave around like a madman for a second. There we go. What was I saying? So the way in which we fetch this data is we have an on-premise relay agent that sits within your company's firewall that uses WebSockets to connect, which means we can get the data in a secure fashion and get the data out. to SquaredUp Cloud and ultimately for you to see in dashboards. The downside of this is it's not as quick as being sat directly next to the data. So from a speed perspective, there's a bit of it depends in here. It is all kind of possible, but it depends. So that's essentially the SCOM criteria. In my mind, that's a win for Dashboard Server. There's so much more that Dashboard Server does for SCOM than Cloud. And some of these things we plan to do something about in Cloud, but some of them we don't. For example, maintenance mode. I can't see us bringing maintenance mode capabilities to SquaredUp Cloud. Bear with me. There are reasons why SquaredUp Cloud makes sense still. The biggest reason is when we look at integrations now. If I go over to Dashboard Server and go to System and go to Integrations, where is Integrations? We've been adding to this list, so we have more and more to see and show here. This is my list of integrations. You'll all be very familiar with these. So this is obviously in addition to SCOM, but that is quite a small list. We have got quite a few core tools in here. We've got Log Analytics, which is useful for your Azure Monitor data, among other things. ServiceNow, Splunk Elastic, SolarWinds, and Prometheus, which are our two newest integrations. So, I mean, that's not bad. But by contrast, if I go to add data source in SquaredUp Cloud, you'll see that this list is vast. Pretty much any data source you can think of is in here. Not all of them. There will be some gaps. And any gap you see is pluggable with Web API or PowerShell, as within Dashboard Server. But in general, you have to do less work to kind of get those data sources connected. So let's take a look at an example. Let's have a look at Azure, good old classic Azure. So if I were to set this up from scratch, it's actually possible just to sign in with Microsoft using OAuth, which is really quick and easy to get going with. I'm not going to do that because this is a demo tenant and I already have effectively this data source added. So I'm going to install it and I'm going to add the sample dashboards as well. These sample dashboards are really useful. Some of the use cases you saw demoed in the keynote we're replicating in out-of-the-box dashboards. So you saw some examples of cost management, essentially, from Avidi. We have some of that built into the products out of the box. So there are some cost management folders here. So let's have a look at our total cost and scope this to our management group of SquaredUp. And we immediately see current month versus last month, subscriptions current month versus last month, along with the difference, and of course the state. So we have some, we've got a red here because for whatever reason, it's 82% difference in amount. £200, £260 more expensive this month than last month for whatever subscription this is. What is this? This is our playground. Okay, that would kind of figure because we're in the middle of closing down our next Dashboard Server release. So we're using that subscription more, therefore incurring a greater bill. But the point is, this is measurable and this is all out of the box. By contrast, no integration that would allow you just to get that insight in Dashboard Server out of the box. You could build it yourself. We saw examples of Patrick Murphy doing things like that. But the whole point here is that we get these dashboards out of the box. Let's look at another one. Patrick Murphy's already somewhat spoilt my parade here in the form of showing the VMware data source, but nothing wrong with that. It's a valid use case. It always comes out really quite highly in the Big SCOM survey for just commonly used tools out there. And that's because large numbers of you have still got your workloads on premise. And of course, we can see the state of our hosts, along with any alarms we might have, and important performance metrics. And of course, the same is true for virtual machines as well, all sort of possible out of the box. The other thing I'll just quickly show is we talked about in that sort of opening slide I showed you about delivering on Azure, which I've shown you, but also AWS. AWS is also in the list here. And again, there are out-of-the-box dashboards for AWS as well. The vast majority of data here is driven by CloudWatch. So there's lots of kind of power in that as well. Starting with cost, which is a classic use case, the first dashboard that appears to have loaded. Cost monthly trends broken down by service type. So you can always tell when we're conferencing because the costs go up because we're off demoing things, essentially. So May, June, we were doing quite a few events, as were we in September. and this is reflected in our cost, unsurprisingly, with metered billing. So that is all kind of cool and very possible. Another sort of use case that's worth kind of touching on within Azure is Azure Monitor, which interestingly is actually top of the list of tools that you guys are using alongside SCOM. So I wanted to show you that quickly as well. So for this, I'm actually just going to create a new dashboard rather than use a pre-canned one. I could use a pre-canned one as well. We're going to actually add on a new tile to this dashboard using the monitor metric data stream. Now, in this case, I'm going to scope this to, let's have a look at Azure Functions, for example. Let's pick on, where is one of these guys. I'm never entirely sure what in a demo lab is doing what and what isn't, so I'm hoping that SquaredUp Functions is doing something right now. The list of metrics that is in this dropdown is effectively fetched from Azure Monitors. This is only those that are relevant to a function. Let's see whether there's any traffic right now to see whether there are any bytes received or to see whether I've picked a duff object. And no, there are there is some traffic happening right now, which is great. I can select the aggregation as you would expect. Let's pick the maximum number of bytes received. As we all know, there's quite a lot of difference potentially between the maximum and the average. Not in this case, interestingly, though. It's also possible, as it is in Azure Monitor natively, to apply a split or filter. So let's say I had multiple objects selected here, for example, and for whatever reason it was grouping them all together. We could split the various objects out. The most common use case I've come across for this is splitting effectively error codes effectively. So show me all failed connections, split them by a 401 versus 403, for example. That will be possible here, as well as filtering out all the 401s because we know there's some particular problem here. So Azure Monitor and Log Analytics are the two approaches we use to get data into these dashboards out of the box. At the moment, these are, you see this because you see there's a text box at the top of this to show you exactly that. I'm going to pick two objects, two random VMs. I hope they're on. These are test boxes after all. And you'll see the most common metrics for these for Windows servers are drawn. So we've got CPU, disk, memory, and network. This is what you'd expect to see, and there are dashboards for most use cases here, but we're right in the middle of building out the list of use cases here. So I've shown you, let's think, what have I not shown you? So I've shown you integrations, I've shown you SCOM use case, we've talked a bit about speed. The final thing is kind of root cause analysis. So when it comes to root cause analysis, you saw in Dashboard Server earlier on up on stage how you can drill down into anything you see on screen. So if I go back into a Windows server, I want to drill into an unhealthy server, the CI box. We have all of these, what we call perspectives, these different views that show us different bits of data about what is on this machine. So this machine clearly has IIS installed on it. So we have an IIS perspective that shows us IIS stats. It is very similar in SquaredUp Cloud. So if I drill down into one of these boxes, Autotesto 1, we have any relevant dashboard appearing here. So I have a dashboard, which is the one we were literally just looking at here, which is applicable, can be scoped to a VM, so it's appearing. I have my single VM dashboard as well, which gives us a bit more detail, essentially, here in the form of a more tailored view for network in and out. We have also got, for all objects you drill down into, an overview, which gives you some key properties. If there are relationships between the objects that we have indexed and other objects, we will show them here. And any relevant data streams, this is real-time data that's being pulled back, is displayed here. So these are effectively all of the relevant Azure Monitor metrics that are returning data right now. Now, an interesting point to point out. So here we have an object. We have nothing sort of links to this object, looks of things, and till I expand it out, let's make this a bit bigger so we can see what we're doing here. Let's expand these things out. You can see this is a host which is contained by a resource group, and there's a tag that's applicable to it. There are 5 monitors that are monitoring this host for stuff. Now, this is very similar to what you get from SCOM, and that's no surprise. unlike in Dashboard Server, all of these drill downs are powered by SCOM's object model, which is great and is very, very powerful. In cloud, we can't rely on the presence of that object model. So this is Azure, an Azure resource. Presumably, there's a resource group in the mix. In fact, we got there from an Azure dashboard. So I know this is an Azure resource. And that's because SquaredUp Cloud is backed by a knowledge graph, essentially. So whenever we connect to a data source, we create essentially a large set of metadata on all the objects that we can see or we can talk to, so you can traverse the relationships between them. And we're working on this capability all the time to make things more and more useful. So when it comes to root cause analysis, if you want to understand why your costs have gone up and you've got monitors that monitor this resource for things to do with cost, let's just expand those guys. You will see them here. These are the names of my monitor. It looks like I haven't got any cost ones right now, unless demo happens to be one, in which case it's green, so it's fine. But you get the idea essentially. As far as monitoring is concerned, obviously SCOM is a monitoring tool, so it has a comprehensive set of monitoring capabilities. SquaredUp, we have also got monitoring capabilities, and you can see that there's some key indicators as to the health of things by the state of the dashboards and the state of the workspaces. So as with SCOM, the health of those objects where they have a health can be rolled up, doesn't have to be rolled up. In the case of this unhealthy tile, I will have monitoring on, and I've got this set to state monitoring, and I'm rolling up the state of objects. And there is an object in here which is in the unhealthy state, so we're rolling up that state. It doesn't have to be enabled, it can be turned off or on. You can also get notifications for where something is unhealthy, and you can get them to a number of destinations. You can get some idea from here. So we've got email, we've got Microsoft Teams, we've got Slack, we have Zapier, we have webhooks as well. And you can configure these in a number of interesting ways, which I'm not going to go into now. Now, SCOM, by contrast, we're relying on SCOM's native notifications system, which you all know the pros and cons of SCOM alerts and how that works from a notifications perspective. You get much more configurability out of the box. Now, I showed you a relatively simple use case here, which is simply to roll up the fact that this is unhealthy. If I wanted to do something that's a little bit more complicated, let me just go to a different workspace quickly. Let's have a look at this dashboard here, which has a cost dashboard example on here. Let's say I wanted to send an alert based on a threshold for this tile, where the total value, the total quantity is greater than, I don't know, £5,000, let's say. I could simply slide on monitoring, set this to type threshold, and specify that this should error where the threshold is greater than 5,000. This will trigger a notification. You also get a warning level. So if I wanted, let's do 5,000. In fact, no, let's do 9,000 and 10,000 or something. So it's amber, so you illustrate the point, to illustrate the point here. The color of the tile also changes appropriately. If I were to save this, then the tile's health state will go from unknown to a state, and that health state will get rolled up to the dashboard level as well. Looks like, well, the fact it's grayed out, I'm hitting rate limits essentially with cost. Oh, the downside of using cost in a demo. So I think that's a good point to go back to slides now. We've done a bit of a comparison between Dashboard Server and SCOM. We've looked at a few particular key criteria. So on SCOM, I can honestly say that Dashboard Server is the undisputed champion. I would be hard pushed to say anything else really, which means that cloud takes second place to my mind. On the latency and speed front, Dashboard Server, again, where the data is local to Dashboard Server, as is the case with SCOM, which is the primary use case for Dashboard Server, that speed is better, that speed is greater, and therefore cloud takes second place. However, when we're looking at integrations and single pane of glass use case and applications, there is one undisputed champion, which is effectively cloud, by virtue of that large list of integrations and the ease of the setup of those integrations. We could do a whole bunch there as far as pulling together a true single pane of glass use case. which means Dashboard Server takes second place. And on the root cause analysis front, it's a bit nuanced, this one. What I've actually done is given them both first place, because it depends is the answer. If your data is in SCOM, Dashboard Server does a better job. If your data is not in SCOM, or is in SCOM and a bunch of other tools, Cloud does a fairly good job. So what I'm really saying is, if you have SCOM as your primary observability and monitoring tool, and potentially some other on-prem tools, Dashboard Server is a really good shout. But Cloud just has that really large list of integrations, which is really, really important. Now, when it comes to effectively helping you choose a tool, I'm doing zero help here, and I'm very aware of this here. So I'm going to go a little bit further here, because what I've basically said is there is a use case for both of these tools independently. In Dashboard Server, you've got potentially 15 years of dashboards you've built up over the years, in addition to those SCOM-specific use cases and workflows, alerts, maintenance mode tasks, etc. Whereas Clouds, you've got the potential of a real true potential of a single pane of glass and those 70 plus integrations, which is great. How is this helping? Well, this is where the feature that Rich mentioned up on stage comes into its own. And we started to roll out this feature in the 6.3 release, and we're starting to effectively integrate our two tools together with tear-off tiles, which I'm now going to demonstrate. So I'm going to go back into demo land quickly. Let's go into Dashboard Server, and we're going to go into this near blank dashboard I created earlier. Let's just lose this massive tile at the top quickly. So the whole premise here is that you've had Dashboard Server for a large number of years, and SCOM is sort of key to your world. So you don't necessarily want to go and rebuild all of those dashboards, but you can see the value in having your, Azure cost information pulled from SquaredUp Cloud into those dashboards. Now, historically, as you saw from Patrick in his session, you would have had to have pulled in the health of those dashboards and just displayed the health, which is what Patrick did in his examples. In Dashboard Server 6.4, we're introducing a more native integration. So if I go to integrations, the keen-eyed of you would have noticed that we introduced a new integration, the SquaredUp Cloud integration, which takes the name of your SquaredUp Cloud, allows you to put a name of your SquaredUp Cloud provider in here, ask for a region and an API key. The API keys in SquaredUp Cloud are super, super easy to generate. Essentially, you just go to API and you go add new API key, give it a name and a description and hit generate key. And you can then copy and paste that key into your clipboard. It's that easy, which is all good stuff. In true demo style, I've set one up already, so I haven't got to go fiddle with API keys for the purpose of my demo. Here it is. It's that simple to set up. Now, what this means, the fact this is set up, is if I go back to my dashboard and I want to add a SquaredUp Cloud tile, it is possible from a SquaredUp Cloud dashboard. So let's say I want to add this guy, subscriptions current month versus last month. Now, this would be a bit of a nightmare to generate natively in Dashboard Server. And just to illustrate this point, I'm going to edit this. This has essentially a data source, cost data source, which is effectively configured to pull the current month's data, scoped to effectively subscriptions by grouping by their name, and I've got the same for last month. And this is all combined with our SQL Analytics feature, which also adds the state in here, the state column, which is cool and is quite powerful because it's straight up SQL. You can do whatever you want in here. We also have a drill down link in here, which is what this link is. So I want this tile in SquaredUp Dashboard Server. So I'm going to copy the tile name, and I am going to go now into Dashboard Server, and I'm going to add a new tile to my dashboard, and I'm going to go to integrations, and I'm going to click SquaredUp Cloud. The provider, I've only got one SquaredUp Cloud provider in here, which is the same tenant here, and I can then simply select the tile. I could type the name of the tile, but I'm going to cheat and paste it in. Now, the important thing to note is this is an out-of-box dashboard in a demo lab, so there are absolutely loads of duplicates of the same thing. The one I had in this tenant is called DSSPOG, single pane of glass, so I will make sure I pick the correct tile. And I've selected it. It will now load, and that's it. It will be displayable in dashboards. I do have some configurability, some options here, just trying to wait to get the lights on in the room again. There we go, that's better. So I can specify the height of the tile here. I can show a border if I want to. I can enable scrolling, which will refresh the dashboard. And those are the options that I have. So there we go, one tile. It's as simple as that, really. So first-party integration. It looks and feels almost exactly the same as this tile, which is, as you saw me create earlier, this is my SCOM alerts tile from earlier. And it looks like a first-party integration, which is awesome. Let's have a look at another example. VM scale sets. VM scale sets in Azure would be another quite difficult to do to deliver example in Dashboard Server natively. You'd have to get the data into Log Analytics at a guess and pull the data from there. Whereas with SquaredUp Cloud, this data is just coming from Azure Monitor. If I edit one of these tiles, you will see that I have picked network out, total metric, and I have aggregation of average, so pretty straightforward. And it scopes to some objects which are VM scale sets. So now I want this tile, network out total. Just to give you an example, that's something that's a bit more interactive because I can hover over the various lines and see things here. And this is from my DSSPOG workspace again. So let's add another tile in here. And we're going to go to integrations, SquaredUp Cloud, and we're going to paste in my tile name once more, like this. Network out, where was this? DS single pane of glass tenant. And again, it just does as you expect it should do. It displays the tile. It's fully interactive. I need to enable scrolling in here and hit done on this. The other thing I should probably do is publish the dashboard as well. I should have given this a name because that's just gone with me as the name, but there we go. And you get the idea. This behaves exactly as you would expect it to behave. So this is a little sneak peek of something that's coming in Dashboard Server 6.4. The obvious follow-on question, which every time I've shown this has gone, that's great, Bruce. That's great for now. We've got all our dashboards in Dashboard Server. We want some specific bits and pieces from SquaredUp Cloud in Dashboard Server. You've shown me how you can do that. That's awesome. I want to go the other way around. Over time, I'm going to want Dashboard Server to be my single pane of glass, and I'm going to want to pull individual tiles from Dashboard Server across into cloud. Now that is also possible. I'm going to create a new dashboard to demonstrate this quickly. So when we create a new dashboard or add a new tile to a dashboard, one of the options is the embed tile, which if I click it, the first thing, apart from just pasting in the URL to be embedded, is to allow the correct domain. So this is effectively a whitelisting capability. Now, SquaredUp Cloud obviously is a cloud native tool. So we need to make sure we allow the right domains, essentially. In my case, I've got star.squaredup.com already added. So I know that this is going to work already. So that's okay. Let's just get back to my workspace now and go to my dashboard. So we need URL to embed in here. That is all possible from Dashboard Server. I'm going to look at, let's have an example from one of the out-of-box SCOM dashboards for Windows Server 2016. Let's have this example at the bottom, because this is something this perspective view is really Dashboard Server specific. There's nothing quite like it in cloud. The first thing we need to do if we want to enable this to be shared as a tile is for the dashboard to turn on open access, which clearly I've done this demo before, so I already had open access at the dashboard level on. This enables at the tile level a hover over to let me copy open access URL to clipboard, which I can then simply paste into my embed tile like thus and save. Like this. Let's make this a bit bigger. And there you go. You can see it's fully interactive. I have an option to effectively drill down into these things by opening in a new tab. Because the issue you have when we're talking about a tile is this is effectively an iframe. So we're drilling down into an individual object within an iframe. It works, but it's not necessarily the nicest way to consume this data. So I'm going to slide on open URL when clicked. which means that when somebody clicks one of these things, we open the tile in a new tab, which means you can drill down into the unhealthy servers and see all the things you'd expect to see from Dashboard Server today. So in other words, you can get the best of Dashboard Server in cloud, which means you can truly unlock the potential of Dashboard Server as your single pane of glass, which is really quite cool. It works exactly as expected. A really cool kind of use case for this actually is a list of alerts, because that is something that is like very bread and butter for SCOM. This is a perspective actually, so this is a bad example. Let's go to the knock wallboard dashboard for a second. And I know this isn't the one I mean. Actionable alerts, sorry, my bad. Where I have one of my tiles is a list of alerts. My error alerts tile. So firstly, I need to enable open access. So clearly I haven't done this demo before, so this will be good to see. As with standard open access, we prepare the dashboard for open access. It's now on. I now should get a little sharing button on this tile, which I get. And in Dashboard Server, in SquaredUp Cloud, I can go and embed this tile. And let's have it open when clicked. Again, it's a list of alerts at the end of the day. Let's make this a bit bigger. So now I've got a list of alerts being generated by Dashboard Server. I can click into these alerts and really get deep troubleshooting from Dashboard Server alongside anything else I might want to stick on a dashboard that is cloud native. So I can stick my SCOM alerts aside my AWS CloudWatch notifications, all possible in the same dashboard, which gives a really nice sort of first-party experience in both directions. So Dashboard Server into SquaredUp Cloud, that is something that's available and is possible to do today. You don't need anything else apart from Dashboard Server 6.3 and SquaredUp Cloud, of course. Integration in the other direction. So with this native tile, let's just find the right tab quickly, is something that's coming in Dashboard Server 6.4. I forgot, I built an example dashboard here to pull in a few examples from Azure DevOps and Azure to see a few different things from cloud side by side and see them work as expected. But you get the idea. So this integration is coming in Dashboard Server 6.4, which is coming very, very soon. Cool. So I think basically going back to slides now, I've given you an excellent answer to effectively why you might want to use both of these tools alongside each other. Dashboard Server is best of breed for SCOM. It will never be anything but that. And Cloud is best of breed for that single pane of glass use case. You want the best of both of them together in one place, which is where Terra Tiles comes in. So no presentation from a product manager would be complete without going through some roadmap stuff. And this is partly because I want your feedback on what I've got in the list of things we're considering. So if you have any feedback, I'd love to hear it, of course, as well as questions, which I haven't looked at during the session, but I will look at afterwards at the end. Starting with a quick recap of what we just shipped back in August, and this was Dashboard Server 6.3. So this is the humble but mighty alert scaler tile, essentially. It's all well and good seeing lists of alerts, but sometimes you just want a color-coded total, which is now possible with the humble scaler tile. We have covered off scheduled maintenance mode already, so we no longer have to look at the grey SCOM console of doom. We finally get like awesome contextual maintenance mode visibility, covering both active maintenance mode and scheduled maintenance mode, which is possible. I've shown you all of this already, so I'm going to skip over this stuff quite quickly rather than recap this stuff. We also in 6.3 introduced a markdown tile, which it does what it says on the tin, really. Lets you input markdown and have that markdown displayed in a tile. The other thing you'll see from this screenshot here is it also supports mustache, which means you can scope some objects and mustache in those objects and properties relating to them, such as the health state, into your markdown, which is quite useful for when you're trying to say the state of this server is blah. And if you're interested in a use case for this, go and have a look at the Dashboard Server 6.3 release webinar. We introduced Dashboard Server's tear-off tile functionality, which I showed a minute ago. So this is the ability to copy an open access URL for an individual tile. Of course, you've always been able to do this at the dashboard level, but the real use case is integrating Dashboard Server into SquaredUp Cloud, but it also means you can integrate it into other tools. In the 6.3 webinar, I integrated it into SharePoint and Confluence, I think, but basically anywhere that will take an iframe will enable the capability to integrate just an individual tile, which is cool. And that's what a dashboard looks like. It took me a minute to actually realize what my screenshot was of, because it looks exactly like a SquaredUp Cloud dashboard. So this is now possible. At the point we released 6.3, there were some cloud components that were still pending to enable this. Those have now been delivered, so that's all possible today. So up next, we have Dashboard Server 6.4. So there's some new stuff in here. I'm going to be teasing a bunch of stuff that you're going to see in more details in the release webinar. If I've got time, I might demo some of this at the end. We'll see how we go. I've already shown you this, which is the embedding of SquaredUp Cloud tiles in Dashboard Server. And that's literally a screenshot I took of the dashboard I showed 2 seconds ago. So that is all possible now for first-party integrations. This will be interesting for you guys. Perspectives and editing the perspectives has all been possible historically, but possible with JSON only, which is fine, but is a bit clunky. It's felt like a bit of a rough edge in Dashboard Server. It's one of those rough edges that one of our engineering team members has taken particular issue with and has really wanted to fix for a large number of releases. So in 6.4, I said, go for it. Let's add some UI for editing those row perspectives. So these appear in multiple places. These perspectives, row perspectives are useful for the matrix tiles, their primary use case, but also obviously perspectives themselves. All very good and very powerful. We have a broadcast system. This one was from a customer, essentially. This allows you essentially to, regardless of what's going on with your monitoring, just to put a text banner at the top of Dashboard Server to say, there's an outage, expect an update at this time, follow this ticket for further updates. This is quite useful for when otherwise you'll be slammed with tickets because people aren't going to drill around all the various dashboards. There were many sort of potential workarounds for this. Our very own Sean has suggested he was using, I think it was a PowerShell script to show a piece of HTML when certain conditions were met to put a tile at the top of dashboards that was otherwise a blank tile. So I've heard of many interesting workarounds for this over the years, and the format here is effectively Markdown, so you can type straight up Markdown, hit send, and have what you see in the preview sent to end users, which is very cool. And then the final feature that we are working on, this isn't even in a demoable state right now, is the ability to run SCOM tasks on multiple objects. And this experience is the mock-up only right now, is going to follow the experience we built for maintenance mode and scheduled maintenance mode. And that now you have a list of things, list of servers, list of SCOM objects. We have that context to be able to say, run these tasks on these objects for the first time. So all the list of tasks and parameters is as today. It's just possible to do on a manual group of objects. Now, the thing that's going to be interesting about this is this is a sort of building a sort of manual reporting use case, because obviously you can write SCOM tasks to do pretty much anything you want. SCOM tasks are very powerful after all, and facilitated by SCOM's agent network, you can run those SCOM tasks on multiple objects to retrieve bits of information, like show me the patch status of these VMs. Is the classic one, and that will be made possible. You can do this in the SCOM console today. As well. So that's Dashboard Server 6.4. So now for the crystal ball slide. So this is stuff I'm including because I want your feedback on it rather than because I'm saying we are definitely going to do this stuff, because we're not definitely going to do this stuff. What you tell me in response to what I'm about to show is what matters the most. So these are things that are under consideration. So to start with, we're going to be looking at high availability performance. It works okay, but at large scale, it doesn't work quite so well. So we're going to be looking at effectively some improvements in the area that may come with some functionality as well. potentially things like load balancing as well. Again, it's going to be interesting to hear your feedback on this point. The cloud product has an SLA gauge, which is a great little visual for showing, how much of something's being consumed. So the classic SCOM use case might be amount of RAM, amount of hard drive space remaining, that kind of thing, which would be quite cool to show in gauge format. And so a gauge tile is on that list of tiles you might be building. VMware comes out time and time again as the platform you guys all have alongside SCOM. It's in the top 3 every big SCOM survey ever, pretty much. So we're considering building a simple VMware integration into Dashboard Server to get you kind of off the ground there. Custom branding has also been considered. So this is along the lines of removing the SquaredUp logo in the top left corner, the log on screen potentially, and a few custom colors. And then we have embedding Dashboard Server into SCOM alerts. So SCOM alerts typically are quite plain. They are text and they are helpful. But as you will all be aware as Dashboard Server customers, the context the dashboard and the pictures it paints is super valuable. If you could simply see that information in your SCOM alerts in your inbox, that'd be awesome. Then you'd obviously be able to drill down into the full SquaredUp dashboard for troubleshooting and to get to root cause analysis. And then finally, we're potentially considering looking at integrating Cookdown's Easy Tune, which is all about SCOM alert tuning into Dashboard Server. And this is for a couple of reasons. Easy Tune is the UI for it is all effectively within the SCOM console in the admin pane. But one of the things that is sort of surfaced there is configuration drift, which is where I've set a bunch of overrides up. This is what's in effect and it's different. And it's really hard to see that because you're not going to be in the admin console every day. Whereas if it were in a dashboard, that would all be kind of possible. And also configuring and managing Easy Tune overrides would be something that would be so much more easily done in Dashboard Server. So these are the things that are under consideration and the sort of larger features right now. So I'm very keen to hear your feedback on these things. Let's see, how long do I have? Oh, I've got a few minutes. Okay, so I'm going to now do an impromptu demo of some of the 6.4 functionality, which is the if we have time stuff. So one of the things I talked about was the broadcast functionality. So this is, bear in mind, this is an early build of 6.4. So if anything I show you explodes, don't worry, we haven't done the testing yet. That testing and bug fix cycle is still to happen. And so it may explode. And if that happens, it happens. We'll see. But you can see here, we do have a broadcast button. So this is important, the location of this, that we're in system, because it means that only a SquaredUp administrator can effectively use this functionality. So there's my markdown announcement. It's broken. This is a preview of what that message is going to look like. If I were to hit send to all, it would appear at the top. What is possible to do is to say, unless the end user manually dismisses this notification by clicking on a cross in the top right corner to give an end time for when effectively those notifications should disappear automatically. So if I now send this, there's a confirm on this, because bear in mind, this is going to every Dashboard Server user like this. This will exist until either manually dismissed by me clicking on the cross, like this, or until the time in question. Let's just put something else in there so you can show it, so you can see it's unique. If I navigate away from this page, just to illustrate the point, this will be on literally every single dashboard until dismissed. And that's the broadcast feature of Dashboard Server. This has come up so many times from customers for the I can't, I'm sure the information is in the dashboard somewhere, but it just all appears to be broken right now. Or if SCOM itself is broken, you get a bit of a heads up from that broadcast system. So that is pretty much all I have to show you today. So I'm going to go back to slides and just check there is nothing else. No, there is nothing else. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Q&A. So if you want to ask a question, please do just come up on stage and ask it, or of course use the chat box, which I'm now struggling to find, because there may be some questions already. Let's have a look. What have we got in here? There is nothing in the Q&A box already, which is fine. So if you have any questions, please do ask them now, either in the chat or come up on stage. Happy to take any question. Let's see what happens. Seems like there are no questions. Happy days. Well, if you have any and you don't want to ask them in such a public forum, do come and find me afterwards. You can also ask the experts on the dashboard server, the DS engineers booth. Those are the guys that built the thing after all and are in the middle of actively testing 6.4's contents right now.